Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. Alongside me tonight, I also have from Central Florida, I have Mr. Professor Pixel, aka not in Twin Peaks anymore. And it's funny that you put that up there, Professor Pixel, because tonight's our new Extreme TV show where we cover the first season, sometimes the second, if it's worth it, of certain TV shows that kind of claim our interest in you being the young 20-something here on this 80s-based channel. I thought it was interesting. You said, hey, let's try this show called Wayward Pines because I was a big fan of the show, like the books. It kind of is very similar to two shows we've covered previously, of course, every single episode of Twin Peaks, as well as The Prisoner, starring Patrick McGowan, one of the best Columbo villains of all time, as an aside. And I got to sit here and say, after watching episode 1, I thought to myself, this is the kind of show I like, where there's a lot of things going on, where you don't know what's going on, but if you go back and rewatch it a second or third time, you notice certain things that you didn't before. It definitely has an air of mystery about it. It
Yeah.
does, in many ways, remind me of a big crossover. It's almost as if Alan Wake, the PC game, turned into a TV show or something that, kind of reminds me of it. Kind of a man stuck, wakes up after a car accident in a small town, a Secret Service agent played by Matt Dillon. And it's basically he's trying to find out where he's at and try to make contact with the outside world. What's your initial take on this episode?
I was going to say it's actually it feels a little bit like if Twin Peaks and The Prisoner had a baby, and you just threw
Baby Six, maybe? I don't know.
No, what?
Baby Six?
Baby Six. I just remembered number 6.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, when we were discussing what to go to, we had Dark Shadows, which we both love, Twin Peaks, which we took a big journey with, and then, of course, The Prisoner. And each one of them actually has has a theme to them that goes ahead and connects them all. Woods. There are always woods. There's always a mountain somewhere. There's always woods.
It's because everything's filmed in Vancouver.
That as well. But no, this one definitely interested me. I've seen some parts of episodes before, and I think most of what I saw was actually in season 2. So when it was time for a new show, it was time to go ahead and give this another shot, for real this time, and to start back at the beginning. And this episode goes ahead and it's going to introduce us to our characters and our setting. And there's one key thing that I didn't realize, and that was that we weren't going to be in Wayward Pines the entire time.
Ah, I see. Yeah, M. Night Shyamalan's name is attached to it, obviously, with directing some episodes, or at least this first one, maybe writing it too, and/or showrunner. So, much like Servant, which is currently playing on Apple TV, this is some of the stuff people think of as being hit and miss, but I like the sense of mystery to it. Matt Dillon's always been a solid actor, and there's some great shots in here. I absolutely love him. Immediately as we start off, before we get the credits rolling, and you see him upside down. He's bloodied. This guy's wearing a suit. He's looking for his personal effects, which he can't seems to find. He's on the side of a riverbed. This just looks great. And so again, it's one of those things where we talk about sometimes less is more in terms of dialogue, because here we get to see what's going on, and our brain tries to fill in so many things. And so it's nice to see him walking around and kind of stumbling through, and we get some immediate flashbacks about him talking to a therapist. And we find out really, really quick that he's somebody that, has a partner that he started fooling around with and he's now looking for, but he's married and everything else there too. So you understand he's already in a compromised personal situation / professional or whatever. And he does, I think Matt Dillon is an actor in here, deliver the heavy sword role. We're rooting for him. Because he's just a strong anchor, and he stumbles into town. Everybody's kind of looking at him. He's bloodied. He's battered. He's beaten. He stumbles into a pine, and the lady says, "Hey, you're in Wayward Pines, Idaho." And she's like, "Yeah." And then we get the weirdo opening and everything else there too. So it's a great hook. Not even.
Oh, I love the opening too.
Yeah, I think it's tremendous. What did you come away with this opening? Anything else stand out to you?
I mean, the opening of the show, it definitely goes ahead and it tosses you in to at least what matters right now, which is, like you said, Matt Dillon. What's his name in the show?
Agent Ethan.
Yes, Agent Ethan. Ethan is sadly just kind of just stumbling through as he's coming to. We learn later that he suffered a car accident, though. That's what led him here. But that opening at the beginning, where it goes ahead, it gives the list of names for you to see at the start. I love. I just watched an episode last night with Jeff Goldblum, and he's talking about the world. He was talking about tiny things. I love miniatures like this. It's the entire town in this tiny format with these little statuettes. And there's this slight turn to it, though, because you can see some of the houses as they're flashing through starting to like slowly erode.
Yes.
It's great. I love it.
Yeah.
But no, I think Ethan, like you said, he is easy for us to go ahead and root for, even though he goes ahead and shows his infidelity early on. But he gets collapsed. He gets taken into the hospital, and he has a terrible nurse. Horrible.
Nurse Pam.
She just cares about him. But it's interspliced. So we get these moments in the past. Well, I guess it's in the past. It's flashing back to the car wreck that led him to where he is now.
We believe that's the car wreck that led him to it now.
Yes.
We don't know.
We don't know for sure. But the car wreck goes ahead and, it explains, so that's why you're here in the hospital, X, Y, and Z. However, sorry, your items aren't here. They must be at the sheriff's office. And they can't connect a phone to his room. You can't contact anybody right now. I'm sorry. I'll try to keep a ear out for messages for you. And we also don't just follow Ethan, because we go back to the secret service headquarters where he works, and they're trying to investigate where did Ethan disappear with his partner? And they look at the wreck later on, and they have to go ahead and call his wife, who is leaving a message for him, to let her know there may have been an accident. And we get to go ahead. She's generally, I think she's attractive, and they have their son. So these characters are quickly introduced. I have to say, that son, as I'm looking at him right now, doesn't he look related to that? Do you know that one TV actor? Did you ever see Raising Hope?
Nope.
No.
He's familiar. He's somebody that we definitely have seen before. Same thing with her. I don't recall their names off the top of my head without looking them up. But the one thing that struck me about this Seattle scene here, where they're taking a selfie and all that, she's finding out the news there's an accident. It's how's a mom handle delivering that kind of serious information to her son? Because, I think they have really good chemistry here. And I think the son seems really sharp. He seems kind of not quite nerdy, but he's just kind of at that awkward age. And I think he just does it well, but it definitely feels like a family. And that's hard to pull off sometimes. And the whole scene after the introductory with the town and all that, I thought was interesting, because we see Agent Ethan in a car with his partner. With his guy partner, not his other partner, the female, and that's where they get hit head on by a semi, and it's a really good way of doing it. But a part of me immediately at that point goes, something's not right, because you don't just get hit by a semi head on like that. I mean, I guess you do or not, but it just doesn't seem right, I guess, because when he wakes up with Nurse Pam, she does a real good job of basically placating him and not giving any information, but as an agent, we can almost see it behind his eyes that he feels like something's not right because there's no phones in the room. And she's like, yeah, well, we're not wired for him, which really is kind of true. And the hospital, when you look in the background, you don't hear any intercoms. You don't see people walking about. There's no hospital sounds. It's pretty dim. It's pretty dead. And so, like you say, splicing all these different things together, And we saw this a little bit in Twin Peaks where they would go through different of the storylines and hash them. So it's hard because I'm not the biggest fan of flashbacks and different timelines jumping together, but I think it's done effectively here to keep you disoriented, especially as we see him getting dressed and leaving. And she basically, as he gets on the elevator, is almost like forcing him to stay. She's like, "You're not thinking clearly." And she's got her foot on the door. No nurse would ever do that. She does such a great job of not coming
Move
across as a
your
cunt or anything
foot.
like that, but she's just very like mean. And when he gets out of town and he stops, I gotta sit there and say, the visuals in here in the small town where he's walking around, you see the mountains in background, absolutely stunning. And when he walks into the sheriff's department, like you said, to go get his things, because the nurse said, "Oh, well, I'm sure that the sheriff has your cell phone, your personal effects." It reminds me, I swear to God, of the Twin Peaks building. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It
No, I
seems like
thought so
it's
too.
so intentional to me or whatever, but we get splices of the scene with the mom, trying to hold it together and letting her son know instead of lying to him, which is I was good. But here's where in the evening, since the hospital's closed or the sheriff's office closed, he stumbles into appears to be the only bar, the only place that's open that he can get some
Biergarten.
information at a bar with Juliette Lewis bartending, and she seems like a normal person. And he's just being kind of normal. He's like, "Yeah, there was an accident. Sheriff's office is closed. I don't have my wallet. I'd appreciate a cheeseburger and all that." And here, again, without saying too much, showing, not telling, there's an interesting line I think she has. He's like, "Hey, I really was in an accident over like that too," because he's like, "Yeah, I'll get my wallet and come back over like that." She goes, "I believed you," like past tense. And or at least that's what it sounds like to me. So I'm kind of like, she just, you can tell she knows more than what she's letting on. It just feels that way. And this paranoia we've had all built up, I think is really, really good. But the most interesting thing, if you're not convinced by the way they're acting, is she writes them, the little check or whatever like that. And on the check, it says, her address or like that. So she wants a booty call, obviously, but she's not coming across hardcore flirting. And it's her address. "Hey, if you have any trouble, look me up." And he's like, "So you believe me?" "Yeah." And this is where she is like, "I always believed you." So it's like that just indicates like I felt like she knew him before or not or what. But when he tips it over, we get the thing. And this is really pops the inner detective in me. She had handwritten a note on there. "There are no crickets in Wayward Pines." And he's
Yes.
looking at it like, "What the fuck?" But of course, when he's leaving and he's going to the quote unquote Wayward Pines Hotel, he hears crickets and he looks around and he sees a speaker playing cricket sounds. And this is before he ends up getting kicked out of the hotel or whatever. What did you think of this? Tell me
Oh,
that's
I
not
love.
like The Prisoner.
Yes, yes. So the amount of artificial right now, at least, is kind of subtle. With the crickets in the background, he notices something weird, and whenever he goes ahead and he pulls out the box, you're like, "Oh no, oh no." But speaking of "oh no," let's talk about the hotel. He gets kicked out early in the morning because the front desk attendant says, "You said you would pay." Yeah. Did you get your wallet? When this putz knows that he didn't. Um, and he says, "I need you to evacuate the room," and won't even let him shut the door to change. So he's just waiting for him to get on out of there. Um, so the next day he decides, okay, I'm going to go ahead and check out this place. So he goes to the address and finds this broken down house. Like, it's totally run down. Lord knows how long it's been there. But he when it goes inside, he's calling her name, and eventually he makes his way towards the bedroom and sees a man chained up and long dead. Somebody he was looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. It goes pretty quick here, but I mean, again, we're about halfway through the episode, just about, because again, he's burned to a crisp, it looks like, and you're like, "What the hell is going on?" This is abandoned house. It seems like in the middle of nowhere. That's supposed to be your address. Um, it's interesting when he actually walks in and meets the sheriff, because at first, we're thinking of Deputy Dumbass from Twin Peaks, and
The front
Ma-
desk.
yeah, this front desk lady too. The Twin Peaks lady's name escapes me, but Andy and remember the
and
whole subplot with her wanting to have the baby in Twin Peaks in
I
season
know
2.
who you're talking about. She's right there on my
Yeah,
mind.
that's the whole point. But this lady kind of reminds me of her. I'm like, oh my God, this is such a ripoff of Twin Peaks. And I don't mind it because it's done well enough. But when you meet Sheriff Pope, this guy's, how do I say it? He's
Lucy.
feels Lucy, that's it, Lucy. Um, this guy's just, you could tell he ain't dealing with any bullshit here at all. He's just a strong presence. He thinks he's going at his own time. It's like he's aggravated that this guy's in his presence, not because he's got something better to do. He's busy flirting, but he's writing on the story like, yeah, I don't believe you. He knows more than what he's letting on, which is kind of interesting. And when they have you see the Seattle office, they cut to it. They're looking at the car that's burnt up, and they say, "Hey, we can't find the GPS, and there's no evidence that he was even in it." And we can talk about how dumb the FBI agents can appear to be, whether it's real life or in movies or not. But generally, they've got assets or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, he ends up, using the phone in the sheriff's office, saying, "Hey, I'm at Wayward Pines, call me," or whatever. So he keeps leaving messages. His wife's not getting him or whatever. The person on the phone is acting like a dick, and he goes to the bar. And he's like, "Hey, I'm looking for Beverly, the bartender, the Juliet Lewis character." I was like, "Bro, don't take it the wrong way, but if you've been drinking a lot, it's this other dude. There's me. There's nobody else." And if you haven't realized something's not on the up and up by now, it's all going on here too, because he almost accosts the guy, and he goes to turn around, the guy whacks him. He slapjacks him. We don't get to see that too often or whatever. So he gets on his walkie-talkie and says something. And you're like, okay, they know who this guy is. They're all in on it. We don't know who they are. We don't know if Beverly is real. Maybe he's concussed and imagining it. But then we get cut real quickly to a touching kind of scene, in a flashback of them basically at the same park that we saw the wife and son at, and it's a happy birthday or party or like that. And I thought it was pretty good because there's a nice little line in here where he says about his wife, and no matter how much I upset her, we're stuck with each other, and we already know that he's had an affair or a fling or whatever, and so you can see them just in the moment enjoying what it is because he's getting the phone call about what's going on. And then this is when he wakes up and we meet another so-called doctor, Dr. Pilcher, who comes in there and he's asking if he's got a history of mental illness. He's handcuffed or whatever. They're going to lobotomize his ass, basically. And then, of course, things escalate here or whatever. But this is a nice, creepy scene being wheeled in because he's doped up. He's going to be passing out here shortly. If you've ever been through surgery, and I have a few times with stuff like this coming up, it's kind of neat. But then we see a hoodie appear out of nowhere, and it's Beverly, the so-called bartender, who we don't know whether or not he's hallucinating. Kind of helps him escape, and then there's we get to see his agent's wits about him as he hides her in one room and hides on the other. Pilcher, she's just, or not Nurse Pilcher. Nurse, was it Pam? Yeah,
Pam.
Nurse Pam. Oh, it is Pilcher, so husband and wife, I guess. She's walking through with this giant fat ass horse needle, basically saying, "I'll give you a present, and if you don't get out here, I won't give you as much stuff, so you'll wake up in the middle." And she does a good job of being grade A asshole cunt here, but then he like shoves her face in the hose that where the fire axe and all that stuff is too, bloodies her up a little bit, and he manages to escape in a proverbial nick of time. And in about 2 seconds, they're in a graveyard in a place, and she leaves some clothes for him. And I'm like, okay, we're getting close to the end of the episode. Shit's happening right now too. This is the action phase of the episode.
I
Anything pop out to you here during this section?
Yes, I need to go ahead and praise two actors here, and that is, of course, Terrence Howard
Yes.
as the sheriff, and then the doctor that you mentioned is Mr. Toby Jones. Oh my gosh, they are just fantastic. If you see a program with them in the cast, it has to at least be worth a try because they are both really just powerful.
Yeah.
Like you said, everything about their ability to hold their own in a scene, that is really the actor. Like, good writing always helps, but they're able to, I think they could take something that's just poorly written and
Well, they're
somehow make
selling
it
it,
worth
right?
watching. Huh?
They're selling it is the whole point. We believe the
Absolutely.
wife. We believe the son. We believe that the one FBI agent that's investigating all this, who's a close friend of his, is legitimately concerned for his well-being and communicating to the wife that there's no shenanigans going on, even though they can't find the GPS or any trace of him. So,
Yeah.
man, like I said, there's a lot going on.
And I do love that we end up in a graveyard because it reminds me of Dark Shadows.
And I wonder how
The
symbolic
grave.
you might think that is with him, being reborn in this town or something. There's definitely some symbolism going on here.
So yes, after this, he has his clothes. He has not a full idea of the situation, but he knows something is up. And a conversation with Beverly hits wrong because he does get to speak with her for another moment. And she basically says that she's been here for a full year. It must be the year like 2000 and something. Early 2000s. Not 2014 as the show is set. And he says that's not possible. It's
Yeah, that's true.
2014.
That's a good catch. Now you're like, shit, now there's a time thing going on.
But we go from there. He gets dressed. He goes outside, and well, look, it's Saturday in the park.
Sunny. Yeah.
It must be the 4th of July. But he sees a woman, and I can't remember this actress' name. Cara,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
but-
Carla could be a very attractive woman.
Yes.
Very healthily built.
I mean, you can see her in, I believe, Sin City, or you can really see her in Sin City.
Right.
But you can also see her in Haunting of Hill House.
Yes.
She and of course it's Bly Manor. It's not sequel, not season 2, spinoff ish. But here we get 2 looks of her. Here at the park with other people interacting, and then her young in a flashback with her short hair, and now she has long hair. She looks like almost completely different. I had to take a second and stare to try to work out that her with the pixie cut. Oh wait, that's her. Holy crap. But basically she sees him and says to her, seems to be hubby, that, okay, it's time to go. And he kind of like follows her home, not far off, like one glance behind, just out of the blue, and they would have noticed, holy crap, this guy's following us. But he goes ahead up to the door after they go in, gives a knock on the Bollinger home, and says, hey, can I speak to, I can't remember her name in the show.
His lover.
Yeah, his lover. And we go ahead and get a conversation on the steps, but not really, because as they go to the steps to talk for a minute, she says, Kate, yes. Kate says, you have to be careful. They're watching and listening. And that's when he starts to look around, and he notices on the fan, there's a camera up there. And the conversation is also talking about what I said before about the woman who thought it was 2000. Well, she says that she's been here. She's gotten older, and that's why she looks so different. And she's been here for 12 years.
Yep.
But she
so a lot of stuff going on with the times, like you said.
Yeah, no. And then she goes ahead and she cuts off the conversation and says, you could be happy here. And he has to make sure this is real. He's like, am I having a relapse or something? And she's like, she gives the tiniest shake of her head that she can before slipping inside. And M. Night Shyamalan, I think he uses this in Servant too, where he will give you a direct look at the face.
Yes.
They're looking straight into the camera.
Yes.
The conversation is between them, but it's uncomfortable as it's happening to you. It's a forced perspective that I really do enjoy. I think he's a man of many talents.
Well, the one thing that gets cut interspersed in this scene here too is we see, yet another flashback when he's getting ready to give testimony, because apparently he could have stopped like a bomber or some terrorist type attack. And the higher ups won't let him, and that's kind of a more common theme that's going on in today's world. And so he's feeling very guilty about all these people. And when we see him, Kate, which is his partner, the one he turning lovers, this is the point where it turns professional into personal relationship, because she goes to comfort him and all that, and they end up kissing or whatever, and they both can kind of just know what's wrong. And in that moment, of weakness that he had, that's what started all off. So we understand it. Doesn't mean we allow it or think it's okay or the right thing to do. But again, as an adult, you understand how this goes on, because he has a traumatic life. He's in therapy. He was mentioning how he's not allowed to tell certain things to his wife because it's super top secret. And it's not an easy job. So we get that he's struggling mentally with it. So that was the whole idea, is that they were, going to look for her, the guy that they were driving with, and the person's body that we found, his other apartment. And so I thought that was kind of interesting, because again, we're piecing all these things together at the hospital here, and we know the sheriff doesn't like him, whatever. So basically, after this exchange where the paranoia gets amped up, what does he do? He does what any self-respecting agent that's got a bit of a skill set does. He goes and he takes the car, he breaks into it from one of the neighbors there, just says, "Fuck it, I'm getting the hell out." And he goes to drive. We get some beautiful shots of him driving out. It's dusk or whatever like that. And we see that he gets to this fence, and you get this big zoom. And this is before Colin and anybody else would do this or whatever like that. We see this incredible shot pulling back in the middle of the night of this electrified fence on the hill surrounding the town that is Wayward Pines, with the little light thing or like that. And you can clearly see it's 100% enclosed or whatever, and that there's not a way out. And so you get to see him when he gets in his car and he freaks out. Sheriff pulls him over. And sheriff's looking at him like, "You dumbass." He's like, "You don't get too far, did you?" And he goes, "How am I supposed to get her?" And he just goes, "You don't." It's awesome, and it's a great way to end.
Yeah. And seeing that fence put all around, that sign, "You are now leaving Wayward Pines," or no, "Return to Wayward Pines."
Yeah.
"Past here, you will die." Reminds me of there's an episode of Doctor Who. Oddly enough, don't dump bodies in the river. It's got that same eeriness to it, and I love it. I love it. So yeah, I think this show is really good. I think I said before that it was a little all over the place, and I didn't mean that in a bad way. Just between the jumps and where we were going, I think they all matter to the episode, to give us the context we need to understand scenes. I think they're very important. It's just the way that it's cut in sometimes feels a little not junky, jarring. And but it's so very good. I love the setting. I think the characters, all of them thus far, have been strong. They make it their impressions that they need to. And there is one scene we glossed over, I think. I don't think you mentioned it. And that's where you see the agent friend who's investigating the disappearance of Ethan.
Yep.
And he stops the doctor, Toby Jones. Says, "I want to back out. I want to stop this."
Oh,
and
God,
says,
yes, that's right.
"It's too late. Yep. It's already done."
So he's in on it.
Yes,
Fucker.
He's in on it. And that's what we're left with. Overall, it's a really strong opening. It really is. And to think this was on Fox, if you watch half the stuff on Fox right now, it's just not going to compare to at least this.
And Fox canceled a lot of stuff that was pretty strong for a season or two.
Yeah, because that's what they do. Exactly. But that's that. Overall, a strong one. This is an M. Night Shyamalan production.
That's a great episode. It's one of the better first episodes of, I think, of any seasons out there. It's very strong. Some people might think Matt Dillon can act and some of the negative stuff about it, but I thought it worked for me. I thought it was definitely a hit. I can't wait to talk about episode 2 in this limited edition run here of Wayward Pines season 1. All right, for Professor Pixel, guys, this is Rob, your host here on the Xtreme Movie Show, Xtreme TV, the special sub show, of course. Check that out. We're going to be getting ready to jump over into another stream here at 7 o'clock Eastern. That's going to be The Magic Sword by Bird Eye Gordon, who died at 100 years old today. And without him, we wouldn't have an Extreme Move Show. We'll talk about that then there. And that's why we have the privilege of talking about such great fare like Wayward Pines, Twin Peaks, Dark Shadows, Mount Millennium. We haven't done that one yet, or Servant, but it's coming. So there you go. Have a good night, everybody. Remember, stay extreme.